Howdy folks, good afternoon. Here's a fourth video today over at the Charlotte Flatwoods Environmental Park, which is sort of like in between Punta Gorda and Fort Myers. But we are now essentially back in Charlotte County. So, most common habitat that is found here is the wetland, which is straight in front of me, sort of like a miniature version of the Everglades. However, though, the other type of habitat that you'll find out here is mostly slash pine, as you can see. However, though, that is not the focus of the video. As a matter of fact, I actually want to focus on a particular invasive tree that has been in Florida for a long time. So without further ado, let's get into it. Give me just a second. So here we go. Alrighty. So, we are focusing upon this particular tree right here, as well as these guys. I mean, they're all still the same thing, but what we're looking at is something called the Melaleuca quinquenervia. That's the scientific name for the tree. And as a matter of fact, there are up to 200 separate species of Melaleuca. So, as I said, the Melaleuca quinquenervia is actually an invasive tree, as they are originally from the country of, or not the country, but the continent of Australia. Now, with that being said, it was brought over here for a variety of reasons. One of them had to do with the massive development that was happening in the state of Florida. So, and this is a special concern, especially in South Florida, because these trees are not very frost tolerant, so they're very particular about the temperature in which they reside. But the story goes, it was introduced into the state back in the early 1900s. Now, it was introduced because at the time, when the Everglades were in its natural state, as it was supposed to be, there was a lot of water that filled the landscape. And so, a lot of cultivators knew that these trees require a lot of water to grow. However, though, they did not know the consequence of an invasive plant at the time and what it was going to be capable of. So, the story goes, there were actually airplanes, cultivators, you name it, in which they would drop the seeds of the Melaleucas. They would basically plant them anywhere. And the drastic consequence was, since they grow so quickly, and the fact that there's really no native wildlife that feeds on it, it was just everywhere. Basically acted as a blanket along the ecosystem. So thus, it really became an existential threat to the South Florida ecosystem, especially the Everglades. So as you can see, the white flowers that are on the Melaleuca, that is how they reproduce. And as you can see, each flower has a lot of seeds on them. So it's even like when you try to remove them, the seeds still disperse. And it's often said that when you cut this tree down, you have to apply treatment immediately, because they literally grow back that quickly. It literally does not take them that long at all. And thus, That's why they're such a threat. However, though, a proposed method of the Melaleuca was to start using it as mulch or even for gardening, because there really hasn't been any known method to completely eliminate these from the state. And it's often said too, another species of Melaleuca, which goes by Melaleuca alterniflora, it's actually been used commercially for extracting oils to put on foods or to even help with other various health measures. So it's also had a commercial use as well. But that is a separate species though, which I don't think you can find down here in Florida in particular. But another proposed method has been to use biological control by introducing something called the Australian Weevil, which is another native species to Australia. However, though, same thing, we still don't really know if the biological control would really work. Because honestly, we really don't know if the Australian Weevil would also become invasive to Florida, whether it would feed on other vegetation and outcompete any native wildlife as well. Yeah, these guys, they've been a serious invasive problem in this state since the early 1900s. And the thing is, it could have easily been avoided had we known more about what invasive plants do to an ecosystem. However, though, they are extremely popular in the continent of Australia, as they're used for ornamental purpose, and you can commonly find them among marshes, just like up here. And they are a very popular source of nectar, especially for the pollinator bees that are native to Australia. But that's the thing. Australia is its native range, so it's able to be kept in check. Unlike up here, it really can't, since it doesn't belong here. It's, for these Melaleucas, it's an alien landscape for them. And since they have no competition from any other native vegetation, they can just reproduce rapidly. But yeah, definitely have to look out for these guys. And as I said, definitely read up on them, because I'm going to share a couple of articles with you guys so you can learn further about the Melaleuca quinquenervia. And it's also known to be the paper bark tree, because if you look at the bark just a little closely, if you can, it's very light. It's a very light wood, and it kind of reminds you of looking at, like as a comparison, kind of reminds you of looking at a shagbark hickory, say like back up in Ohio, for instance, for those of you who know what that looks like. It just has a very papery texture, tends to shed a lot. But yeah, have to look out for these. And yeah, you can even see them back there. Yeah, these guys, if you let them grow on their own, they can grow up to 80 feet tall. And their trunk can actually be very wide. But yeah, they just grow so fast. But aside from seeing the Melaleuca, we do still have a chance to see a bit of the native vegetation that does belong to Florida. See, the fortunate news is, since this is an environmental park, this is preserved a bit better, since you figure, since it's part of the county, there's prescribed burns that take place here, invasive removal. There's just a lot more action of conservation that's going on. But yeah. And it's actually my very first time here. So it is, so far I'm actually really liking this park. It's actually quite neat. So alright you guys, I hope you learned something of value in the video, regarding invasive trees. It's actually a category 1 invasive, so it's a bit serious. And yeah, there's actually, I remember when I was in cross country and track back in my younger days, so to speak. There was actually a company that was called Melaleuca, in which they would derive oils out of the plant itself. That was the commercial use, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, it's just really a matter of still finding out what method really works, because Melaleuca is a very difficult one to control. And unfortunately, it's really bound to be that we may never be able to get rid of it, since humans over 100 years ago made that serious mistake of rapidly introducing them here. So, hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and enjoy your Sunday. And once again, Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care, folks. See ya.